Hello once again, I'm Don Jackson. It takes a minute to have a crush on someone, an hour to like someone, and a day to love someone. But it takes a lifetime to forget someone. What it's like to be left behind. And this is the heartbeat of the internet. Merle Shane, in her bestseller, Some Men Are More Perfect Than Others, wrote, and I quote, "It can take years to get over a broken love affair, and maybe one never really does. Popular wisdom has it that one must keep busy, and while a new project or a new dress isn't really the answer, there isn't really an answer. So we try them, and in time things don't seem as bad. It helps to have a friend who walks you around, walks you to lunch and to movies despite your protests, and keeps you moving until the life-preserving juices start once more to flow. And of course, if keeping busy and time and a little help from your friends makes it easier, so does finding someone else. It's a little like the hair of the dog that bit you, of course. But then, as John O'Hara observed, where would love be without loneliness?" Merle Shane, in her bestseller, Some Men Are More Perfect Than Others, also wrote, "If the second marriage is a success, the first one really isn't a failure," McLachlan wrote. And lots of people who were left by someone else ultimately wonder why they ever stayed themselves. Merle Shane also writes, "One of the fringe benefits of being handed back your life is being awarded custody of yourself." Living alone is a life without mirrors, a life without a diary to read to see where you've been, and if at times it seems as if nothing has really happened when it hasn't been recorded by another set of eyes, it is also true that when you stop relying on others to tell you what they see, you see for yourself, and clearer still. A last excerpt from Some Men Are More Perfect Than Others by Merle Shane. This is a story called The Drawer Wouldn't Close by Jan Nations. It was featured in the collection Chicken Soup for the Single Soul. And I quote, "Sorry, ma'am. There must be a mistake. We have your husband scheduled as being on vacation." The voice on the other end of the line spoke in carefully arranged words. "Vacation? No, he's supposed to be on a business trip." "I'm sorry." The voice began to falter a little as we both realized what was happening. "We have no information about a business trip." And so it was that a life that began in bliss ended in betrayal. It's not a cliche when it's your life. Jan Nations goes on to write, "My husband had kissed me tenderly before he left for the airport that day. 'You've never looked more beautiful,' he said. 'Don't forget, Wednesday is our date night. I love you.' I had noted how handsome he was, as always, with his tall frame, salt and pepper hair, and a sharp business suit. After 30 years of marriage, 3 children, and 3 grandchildren, I could honestly say my heart flip-flopped every time he walked in the door. After he left, though, I spent the day fighting off an unusual feeling of loneliness. Blaming it on the dreary weather, I spent the day by the fire with a book until I finally retired, still uneasy. At 6 a.m., I awoke, feeling that something was very wrong. Thinking I'd had a bad dream, I waited for the panic to pass, but it didn't. Finally, I decided to do something I almost never did. Phone my husband at his hotel. Every night when he was away on business, he would phone me. I had never felt the need to call myself. This time, I did. It was after the hotel call, the one where the desk clerk found no one registered under that name, that I called the office hoping for a hotel mix-up. A few months later, my husband filed for divorce. End quote. The conclusion of this chicken soup story by Jan Nations next. Their date night was Wednesday, supposedly right after he returned from a business trip. But his wife knew that something just wasn't right. Eventually, she heard from him again. The time when he filed for divorce. The conclusion now of The Drawer Wouldn't Close by Jan Nations. It was featured in the collection Chicken Soup for the Single Soul. And again I quote, "A few years later, still working through the pain, I began leading divorce recovery workshop groups at my local church. I had endured personal loss, defeat, and rejection. I had dealt with the pain my family had to bear on my behalf. My deepest wounds, though, had been self-inflicted, brought on by my anger at being an unwilling participant in a divorce. While doing housework one day, I was thinking about how much pain I could have avoided, and others could too, when I suddenly turned off the vacuum and sat down with a notepad and pen. I began writing, page after page, spilling out words of healing, a few lines at a time. When I ran out of thoughts, I looked at the pages and shrugged, wondering what it was all about. Then I stuck them in a desk drawer. Yet I kept feeling the urge to get those notes out and read them again. After a while, I did, and was surprised to find out they read like greeting card verses. Where was I going with this? I had no funds to hire an artist or pay a printer. I put the notes back in the drawer. The nudgings continued. Then it occurred to me that I did know one artist. Without giving myself a chance to back out, I called my former husband and, in a rush of words, preluded with, "This is strictly business," I told him my idea. He asked me to read some of the verses. Then, after hearing a few, he said he'd love to design original watercolor art for them. He would provide funds for printing costs as well. A week later, my former husband delivered to my door a bouquet of 8 beautiful watercolors, all perfectly matching the emotion of my verses. I named the cards X's and O's, end quote. And I should mention here that X as in her ex, and O's as in the expression, oh. Again I quote, "A front-page article about my venture and my unique partnership with my ex-husband appeared in the business section of the Colorado Springs newspaper. The story was picked up by the Associated Press, generating phone calls from across the country. I did radio, television, and newspaper interviews, and even got a call inviting me to be a guest on the Today Show. Thanks to all this popularity, X's and O's have been sent to spouses, children, parents, in-laws, and friends going through divorce. And the calls that have meant the most to me by far haven't been from media. They've been from individuals who have told me how they've used the greeting cards to work through the I'll get you back kind of pain that can be the most debilitating in a divorce. One woman who ordered the greeting cards wrote me saying, "Thank you for being a light in the darkness." That's what astonishes me the most about all this. God had plans for me. He somehow squeezed light from the darkest moments of my life. I had a drawer that wouldn't close, so I looked inside and I found the plans for a new life. The drawer Wooden Clothes by Jan Nations. It was featured in the collection Chicken Soup for the Single Soul. I stumbled upon this poignant writing in a Canadian almanac some years back. It's called The Patchwork Quilt by Ines Culver Corbin. Let me set this up by saying a little doll and a quilt on a bed are speaking. And I quote, "The little French doll on the bureau sat, and I wondered what she was staring at. It wasn't the rug with the braided row or the doorstop cat that stood just so, but the patchwork quilt on the walnut bed. Oh, where did you get your colors?" she said, "of blue calico and pink crinoline and checkerboard checks as straight as a pin. I was made in the days of the lamplight glow by a dear little girl that I used to know," said the patchwork quilt with a pensive air to the little French doll with the golden hair. This calico patch of daintiest hue just matched her eyes of violet blue, and her hair hung down in a flaxen braid as she romped and played neath the locust shade. This pink was a piece of a dimity gown that she wore when the soldiers marched into town. To the drum's wild beat and the cannon's roar, she said goodbye at the winging door to the lad who never came back to see her waiting beneath the locust tree. I'll always remember this white one, I guess, for this was to be her wedding dress. This dear little girl that I used to know comes drifting back from long ago. She stitched her hopes and her rosy dreams, her smiles and her tears in these tiny seams. And she lives today as in days gone by. But the little French doll made no reply. She sat very still with the dreamiest stare, and I saw a teardrop glisten there. But there has to be more that you can gain from leaving something you've outgrown behind. Finally, Ellen Hansen in the collection Chocolate for a Woman's Blessings was quoted as saying, "I didn't leave you for another man. I left you for another woman. The one I couldn't be while I was with you." Have a great day and a good night filled with many sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.